2 women entered this building, neither left alive. And the man who killed them, he filmed every detail, then called police to confess. But the real horror wasn't the murders, was what those videos revealed about privilege, madness, and a city that looked the other way. This is the story of Rurik Jutting. From the outside, he seemed like one of Hong Kong's top, wealthy, and smart young people. But inside his fancy apartment on the 31st floor, his mind slowly broke. He even filmed the terrible things he did. His mind slowly broke, leading to sudden, violent, and very precise acts of horror. Before we explore the case, if you'd like to support the channel, hit the subscribe button and stay active. It really helps a lot. Now, let's get into it. The terrible story started to unfold on November 1st, 2014, in a fancy apartment building on Kennedy Road, a place known for being rich and safe in Hong Kong. 4 days before, a strange, bad smell had been spreading through the building. A strong, rotting stench that hinted at something very wrong. People on lower floors complained, wondering where the terrible smell was coming from in such a nice place. The building's security guard, who was always watching, had been told about it. But no one could find exactly where it was coming from, until, that is, the call came. It was unusual, not from a worried neighbor or someone who saw something, but from the person living in apartment 3109 himself. The voice on the phone was Rurik Jutting's. He sounded calm but urgent, saying the chilling words that would start the nightmare. Something terrible has happened. You need to come immediately. Police went to the luxury building and stopped at apartment 3109 on the 31st floor. No one answered the door, but a strong smell of decay came from inside. The security guard said the smell had been there for days. After hearing faint mumbling and getting no response, the officers broke the door open. A wave of foul air rushed out, confirming their worst fears. Inside, the apartment was a mess, a huge difference from the clean, neat luxury apartment they expected in Hong Kong. There were stained walls, things scattered everywhere, and a heavy, bad smell of neglect and being shut in. In the middle of the living room, they saw something truly horrible. The body of a young woman, partly undressed, with clear and bad wounds on her neck and upper chest. Investigators quickly figured out that she had been dead for quite some time, suggesting that the crime wasn't a sudden burst of anger, but something that happened over a period. Not far from her, seemingly unaware of the mess or the police, sat Rurik Jutting. He was barefoot, holding a knife covered in blood. His eyes looked empty, and his lips moved all the time as he mumbled unclear words about God, evil, and saying that it had already happened. He didn't react, didn't seem surprised or afraid when the officers arrived. He was just there, in the mess he had created. Officers quickly held him down and called a medical team to check his strange behavior. Then they started to look around the terrible scene. The apartment had many disturbing clues. Open bottles of alcohol, powdery white stuff on small plates, empty takeaway boxes, plastic bags, tangled wires, empty medicine packets, and discarded clothes. Everything showed that someone had stayed in the apartment for a long time, in a disordered and terrifying way, suggesting a deep fall into evil that had taken days, not hours. The forensic team, who were used to dealing with grim crime scenes, worked for hours in the terrible-smelling apartment. The young woman's body, later found to be Jessie Lorena, stayed on the floor while they carefully wrote down what they saw, took many pictures, and mapped out how the apartment was laid out. Every detail was a clue in the horrifying story. No one expected the second, even more shocking discovery that would come from the scene. An officer, wanting a quick break from the heavy air inside, opened a glass door that led to the balcony. It was completely shut, almost sealed. As he slid it open, he instinctively pulled back. On the balcony, under a clothesline, police found a large black suitcase. It was heavy, oddly shaped, and smelled awful. Inside was a second body, cut up, wrapped in cloth, and tightly packed. It didn't look like a rushed crime, it looked planned and carefully hidden. Both victims were young East Asian women, but there were no IDs or clues about who they were or when they died. One thing was clear: something horrifying had happened in that apartment, and it had not happened quickly. The discovery of the second body changed the case from one awful murder into something much worse, to murders done with chilling care. Investigators, now under huge pressure and dealing with a crime that was unusually cruel for Hong Kong's generally low crime rates, wrote down every detail. The man found inside the apartment, Rurik Jutting, was taken away by police under tight security. There were no signs of a struggle on his body, no scratches or bruises to show his victims fought back. The medical team confirmed he was awake, but he was acting very strangely. His eyes looked far away, and he spoke in broken, unclear sentences. He didn't give any clear reasons, just short, confusing phrases about guilt, blood, and the final week. These mysterious words hinted at a deeper, more troubling story that was yet to be uncovered. Hong Kong is known as a global financial hub, but it also made the victims more invisible and at risk. It's one of the world's most crowded cities, filled with noise, people, and tall buildings packed tightly together. Most people live in tiny, shared apartments with thin walls. Space is limited and very expensive. Meanwhile, the wealthy, like Rurik, live high above in luxury apartments with private elevators and tight security. This creates a kind of impenetrable bubble of wealth. The differences are striking, even jarring. At the bottom of these shiny towers, narrow alleys twist through dirty drains, past temporary street food stands, and strange shops with no signs. During the day, these places often seem empty, forgotten by the city's never-ending rush. But at night, they come alive, turning into a hidden network that operates away from official eyes. Behind the bright lights of bars and clubs, a hidden system operates. These places are called lounges or karaoke bars, where women work as hosts meant to chat and serve drinks. But secretly, many are used for illegal escort services. These services are not advertised and are mostly known to wealthy, often foreign men. Most of the women do not have legal work permits, leaving them vulnerable and afraid to report abuse, since speaking up could lead to deportation. This is a terrifying thought for those who are the only ones earning money for their families back home. Many of these women, including Sumi Ningrat and Jessie Lorena, came to Hong Kong from poor villages in Indonesia and the Philippines. In the past, they might have worked legally as house helpers with proper work visas. This was hard work, but it was a lawful way to earn money. However, once their permits ran out, they had to go back to their home countries. Some, pushed by strong family duties and the desperate need for money, later came back to Hong Kong on tourist visas. This type of visa clearly forbids working legally, but for them, there was no other choice. Their families depended on their income, and all other ways were closed. Working in clubs, even with all its dangers and unfair treatment, often became their only way to earn money. On paper, it was entertainment. In reality, it was unofficial work. Operating in a risky legal grey area with no protection and strict control from the people running the illegal businesses. In the busy daily life of Hong Kong, if a woman disappears, it usually doesn't cause much alarm, especially if she has no legal papers, no official status, and no formal ties to the city. When someone in that situation vanishes, people usually don't worry or start a big search. It's often seen as normal, a natural outcome of their risky life. At best, a roommate or someone nearby might try to find her. At worst, she's simply forgotten, another silent number in a city too busy to notice. Across Hong Kong, it's common to find apartments being rented off the books. Several people might share one room, paying in cash. It's easy, convenient, with no background checks or nosy questions. For migrants, it's often the only place they can afford to live, or the only one they can get because of their legal status. But that same unofficial setup makes them almost invisible. If one of the tenants doesn't come home one night, no one immediately gets worried. Even if days go by, Hong Kong runs very smoothly. There's no time to stop for one person. Those who are outside the official system are treated as if they don't matter much. Their disappearance isn't seen as a big event. It's just another number in a statistic that no one pays attention to. This blind spot in society, caused by Hong Kong's unique pressures and structures, created the perfect hunting ground for someone like Rurik. It allowed his victims to disappear into the city's huge, uncaring anonymity. Sumi Ningrat was born in a small, poor village in Indonesia, and she faced hard times from the very beginning. Her family struggled to afford food, medicine, and school supplies. To help them, she decided to work abroad. Hong Kong was the only place she could get a visa to work as a house helper. Jessie Lorena had a similar life. She also came from a poor village and moved to Hong Kong in 2006 with a work visa. She worked legally for years, renewing her permits and supporting her family. Everything changed for Jessie in 2012 when, like Sumi, her visa renewal was unexpectedly denied. She too had to go back home, which was a huge blow to her plans and her family's money situation. Eventually, she made the hard choice to come back to Hong Kong on a tourist visa, hoping to find some kind of work, any work, to keep helping her loved ones. The circumstances, born from desperation and the hidden networks of the city, led both Sumi and Jessie to the same place, a club that officially pretended to be a bar with entertainment. In reality, it served clients looking for more than just drinks, acting as a secret place for private meetings, for money. That's where these women worked, even though they had no legal right to be employed there, their presence alone breaking their tourist visa rules. Technically, they were there to create a good mood, to talk and dance, but most arrangements for private meetings happened outside the club. The pay was low, even tiny, but they had no choice. They couldn't go to the police. Their legal status left them completely unprotected. No one checked their working conditions, their hours, or their safety. They worked at night, lived in small, often shared, rented rooms with no official papers, which made them even more invisible. The club managers kept quiet but constant control. Refusing a client or making a complaint meant being fired right away. And for someone working illegally, that meant no more income, no more way to help their families. It was under these dangerous conditions that both women disappeared. Their vanishings were at first like tiny ripples in the huge ocean of the city, not noticed by most. Sumi Ningrat vanished on October 26, 2014. That evening, she had been at the club, spent time with clients, and then left. No one saw her again. Jessie Lorena went missing just 6 days later, on November 1st. She had also been on her shift, then left, but never returned to her rented room. Even though their disappearances happened close together, no one connected them. Neither the police, nor the club's managers, nor their casual friends linked the two cases. Both women had no legal status, weren't in any official records, and their disappearances caused no public outcry. They were simply, tragically, another loss among those living in the shadows. Only later, when the shocking details of the Rurik Jutting case came out, did it become chillingly clear that they had both disappeared from the same place, followed the same work pattern, and, as would later be found, both met the same person. But at the time they went missing, it was just seen as another sad, routine disappearance. When Jessie Lorena didn't come home, her roommate, filled with growing worry after days of silence, started to search. She first went to the club where Jessie worked, desperate for answers. Staff told her Jessie had indeed shown up on the evening of November 1st, spent some time with a guest, and then left with him. No one had seen her since. Her phone went unanswered, its silence causing a growing dread. After several days without any news, the roommate, showing great persistence despite the indifference she faced, reached out to the police. It was only after her strong urging that a missing person report was officially filed. This really showed how hard it was for people without proper papers to get help. Police, now with an official report, asked for security camera footage from the club. In one of the grainy videos, Jessie could be seen talking to a man who visited the club often, though quietly. They were together for a short time before leaving the building. Club staff recognized the man right away. He came in often, always by himself. He was described as calm, quiet, didn't talk much to others, and never caused trouble. He also stood out because he always left big tips, a detail that created a false picture of him as a harmless customer. Authorities were able to identify him quickly because of his frequent visits and the security camera footage. His name was Rurik Jutting, a 29-year-old British man. Their investigation led them to his home, a fancy apartment on the 31st floor, the very same building and unit where the first terrible discovery would soon be made. According to security camera footage, that's exactly where he had taken Jessie Lorena on the day she disappeared. Police tried to contact him, but he didn't reply to their first calls. Sometime later, Jutting himself broke the silence. He made the chilling call, telling the police that something terrible had happened in his apartment and asking officers to come right away. A team was quickly sent to the address he gave. What happened next? The horrific scene that was found inside apartment 3109 became the clear, shocking beginning of a police investigation that would grab headlines in Hong Kong and around the world. Until that moment, Rurik Jutting hadn't caused any alarm. To everyone on the outside, he seemed like a successful, well-educated professional, a young banker at the very top of the financial world. He looked sharp, and his background was perfect. He worked at Merrill Lynch, a big American investment company, and was seen as a rising star in the tough world of finance. People who knew him said he was very capable, always on time, and liked his privacy. His social standing, his perfect behavior in public, and his expensive lifestyle all matched the image of a confident international professional doing very well in a global city. But what police found in his apartment shattered that carefully built image. It showed a terrifying double life that no one could have guessed. Officers were shocked by the huge difference between Jutting's public image, the picture of success and good behavior, and the unimaginable horror they found behind the closed doors of his luxury apartment. The once fancy home was a total mess, turned into a gruesome death scene. Inside was the body of Jessie Lorena, showing signs of very bad injuries, along with many items that clearly pointed to serious crimes, not just a sudden outburst of anger. Among the evidence were knives, restraints, containers connected to illegal drugs, and perhaps most damningly, digital devices that held information that would later become key to the charges against him. Investigators carefully looked at security camera footage from the high-rise building. The recordings provided a chilling timeline, showing both Jessie and Sumi Ningrat entering the building on separate days at different times. Very importantly, neither of them was ever seen leaving. Security staff, following rules that allowed residents to have anyone visit and mainly used cameras for checking past events, rather than watching things happen live, had no reason to step in. Both women had therefore spent their final terrifying days inside an apartment legally registered to someone with a perfect public image. After Rurik Jutting was arrested, he didn't fight back. He showed no clear signs of panic or regret. He seemed tired and distant, almost as if the gruesome situation didn't concern him personally. This chilling lack of emotion was the first clear sign of the deep psychological problems that would soon be revealed. Rurik George Catlin Jutting was born in London in 1985. His parents worked hard. His dad was an engineer and his mum was in business. Over time, they built a stable, comfortable life in a good neighborhood. Rurik had a good childhood with support and a strong education. He was smart and did well in both math and literature. Classmates remembered him as quiet and often alone, but very intelligent. He avoided large social groups, not seeming very interested in typical teenage friendships, and preferred being by himself. This trait would only get stronger as he got older. His impressive school success earned him a desired spot at Cambridge University, one of the UK's most famous and difficult universities. There, he studied economics, a field that perfectly fit his analytical mind and his parents' goals for him. Soon after graduating from Cambridge, Jutting got a highly sought-after job at a big investment firm in London. This was a dream start for anyone wanting a career in finance. His career moved forward incredibly fast, which showed his clear intelligence and strong drive. He moved between increasingly important banks, taking on more senior roles each time, gaining experience and building a very strong reputation. Within just a few short years, he became known as one of the most promising young professionals in the very competitive world of global finance. When his employer, an American banking company, expanded its operations in Hong Kong, Jutting was offered a key position in the new office in Asia. He said yes without hesitation, seeing the huge chance for more career growth and more money. The move greatly increased his already large income. He quickly rented a high-end apartment in a special complex, setting up a big home with amazing views of the glittering Hong Kong skyline. Everything about his life looked like a perfect success story: young age, high status, huge wealth, and clear social standing. On the outside, he fit in perfectly with the many other driven professionals dominating the city's financial scene, looking polished and perfectly dressed among his peers. But behind that polished outside were traits that, while maybe not immediately clear, were deeply rooted and would lead to his downfall. Jutting was a very private person. He had a very small group of friends, actively avoided personal connections, and wasn't interested in public life or casual get-togethers. At the same time, he had a quiet, almost unnoticeable feeling of being better than others, an intellectual pride. Those who worked with him professionally agreed he was capable and brilliant, but they rarely remembered anything personal about him. He shared little about his life, kept strictly to himself, and built walls around his inner world that very few, if any, were allowed to cross. The first big problem in his seemingly stable and successful life came through a personal relationship. He had been with a woman named Sarah. Their relationship had lasted for a while, even though it was long distance, with her living and working in the US while he was in Hong Kong, according to people close to him. He was very attached to her and took the relationship seriously, a rare look into his emotional side. The breakup came suddenly and hit Jutting hard. Sarah started seeing someone else and told him without warning. He fell into deep depression, started therapy, and took medication, but his condition kept getting worse, with troubling changes in his behavior. Jutting became easily irritated and more isolated. His work suffered, he missed deadlines, and his good reputation began to fade. Though the change was not clear at first, he was falling apart fast on the inside. During this difficult time, his life started to completely fall apart. He began to try and then abuse illegal drugs, going to parties and having short, casual relationships that didn't bring him any comfort. Slowly, he lost control not only over his once famous career, but also over himself, his self-control disappearing. Around the same time, in a desperate try to get back to some kind of normal life, he started dating a new girlfriend, Ariane. She was young, attractive, and very active on social media. She often shared photos of their trips, dinners, and events. Their online presence looked perfect, a carefully put together image of fancy homes, expensive restaurants, and beautiful flights, a perfect front. However, behind the beautiful pictures, a darker truth was growing. Arguments, angry outbursts, and the increasing coldness with which Rurik treated her. The illegal drugs he was taking made his already bad temper worse, making him harsh, unpredictable, and verbally abusive. The relationship soon ended, another victim of his spiraling mental state. From that point on, Jutting's life went further and totally out of control. His use of illegal drugs went up sharply. He became very withdrawn, rarely leaving his apartment, and basically disappeared from the view of former co-workers and friends. His behavior became so unstable, so strange, that even those few remaining connections started to avoid him. He lost friends, professional connections, and the last bits of trust he once had in the banking world. At the same time, alarming signs of deep mental problems appeared. His social media posts, which used to be boring and professional, became strange and didn't make sense. They were full of dark metaphors and broken phrases that showed inner destruction and a total loss of touch with reality. He started using disturbing images of darkness, fear, and death. A post from October 27th, after Sumi Ningrat had already died, sounded like a dark farewell. I'm jumping into the darkness. The journey has begun. I'm not afraid, but I'm excited. The first step is the hardest. It confused the few who saw it, but sadly, no one spoke up or raised any alarm. The very next day, he suddenly quit his high-status job without explaining or talking about it beforehand. His work email was immediately turned off, but the automatic reply still worked. A final, chilling message to anyone who dared to contact him. I am out of the office indefinitely. For urgent inquiries, or indeed any inquiries, please contact someone who is not an insane psychopath. For escalation, please contact God. Those suspect the devil will have custody. Last line only really worked if I had followed through. This message seemed strange and completely inappropriate to co-workers. Most thought it was a failed, dark joke. Later, the email's content became a very important piece of evidence, a chilling self-diagnosis. All these events, the sudden change in behavior, losing self-control, becoming very isolated, and expressing himself in increasingly aggressive ways, happened within just a few days. This showed a deep, fast-moving inner crisis. However, because his mental breakdown was so sneaky and he was so private, no one stepped in. Neither former co-workers, nor friends, nor acquaintances raised the alarm. His downfall was fast and complete, and by the time the police broke into his apartment, it was too late to stop him. After Rurik Jutting was arrested and his 31st floor apartment was carefully searched, the main part of the criminal investigation began. Investigators quickly took his mobile phone. This device would end up showing a horrifyingly complete and undeniable picture of his crimes. The phone held dozens of videos and photos in which he carefully recorded what he did to the two women. The content left no doubt at all. Everything that happened was planned, thought out, carefully recorded, and chillingly intended by him. The first video was recorded shortly after Sumi Ningrat died. The camera focused on Rurik himself, sitting next to her lifeless body. His speech was calm, cold, and showed no emotion that might suggest regret or shock. My name is Rurik. 5 minutes ago, I killed this woman. Since Saturday, she was here. Today is Monday. I kept her locked up. She was good, but that doesn't mean anything, he stated, his voice flat, his stare empty. These words showed neither sadness nor surprise. He described the events as if he were calmly summarizing an experiment, a detached scientific observation. In other videos, he shared his twisted thoughts about what had been happening inside the apartment during the days Sumi was held captive. He chillingly explained how he barely left the couch, survived on delivered pizza, took illegal drugs, and drank alcohol, all while a dead woman lay in his apartment and another was held captive. The recordings showed a person who was aware, knew what he was doing, but was completely disconnected from any moral rules, any bit of human kindness. I don't feel guilt. There's something, but it's not guilt. I feel like a stranger to myself, he stated, his words giving a glimpse into a very troubled mind. These were not angry, sudden actions. Every careful move was recorded on camera by the killer himself. Security camera footage from the building, which matched his videos, showed him leaving the apartment and coming back with 2 large duffel bags. Inside, chillingly, were saws, knives, and other kitchen tools. All of it, the investigation would confirm, was used to cut up Sumi's body. He then put her remains into a strong bag and left it on the balcony, making no effort to hide his tracks or leave the city. A few days later, with Sumi's remains still on his balcony, he went back to the same club where he had met his first victim. There, he approached Jessie Lorena, offering her money to come to his apartment. Unlike the first time, he didn't wait. The second crime, the murder of Jessie, happened that very night. Her body was left in the middle of the room, and Jutting was still next to it, covered in blood, holding a knife, and speaking unclearly when officers finally arrived. The recordings made it very clear that these acts were not caused by a sudden mental breakdown or a temporary psychotic state, but by a conscious, deliberate choice. After the first crime, he chose to do it again, driven by a disturbing curiosity and a complete lack of feeling for others. His own words, caught on video, were chillingly clear. "That was an experience. I want to do it again." The video files became more than just evidence. They were direct, undeniable confessions, recorded and kept by the killer himself, leaving no room for doubt or other explanations. After Rurik Jutting was arrested, he was taken into police custody. During the first interview, he immediately confessed everything without pressure or hesitation. He described what had happened in his apartment, didn't make excuses, and didn't try to soften the brutal facts. He admitted to holding Sumi Ningrat captive for several days before ending her life and carefully explained the whole series of events, including cutting up her body. Investigators noticed that he spoke calmly, showing no visible emotion. His detached manner was as disturbing as the crimes themselves. The next important step in the legal process was a mandatory psychological evaluation ordered by the court. Several experts carefully checked him. The goal was to find out if Jutting was able to understand his actions and their results at the time of the crimes. Every professional involved, working on their own, came to the same conclusion. He was mentally sound and fully responsible for what he did. Although he was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, a condition marked by being very self-centered, having no empathy and always wanting to control others. This diagnosis did not excuse him legally or save him from trial. It simply explained the chilling mindset that allowed him to commit such terrible acts without feeling any regret. The defense lawyers, facing overwhelming evidence, tried to get a lighter sentence. They argued that Jutting had been in a fragile emotional state, fighting a serious drug addiction and suffering from mental instability during that time. Former girlfriends testified that he had once been balanced, caring, and not confrontational. They tried to paint him as a sympathetic figure who had sadly broken down under the heavy weight of addiction and mental decay, hoping to get some pity from the court. However, the court did not accept this story. Prosecutors and investigators clearly showed that the crimes were not sudden acts of anger from a breakdown. They were carefully planned beforehand. This was supported by his own recordings, where Jutting calmly described his actions and plans. The court called his behavior intentional, cold, and brutally calculated. The evidence, his own confessions, phone records, and the horrifying photos and video files left no room to believe his actions were those of someone out of touch with reality or in a temporary crisis. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he chose to do it. In October 2016, after a difficult trial that revealed the darkest parts of the human mind, the court gave its final, clear decision. Rurik Jutting was found guilty on both counts of murder. He received 2 life sentences, one for each crime, with no chance of getting out on parole. This decision meant he would spend the rest of his life in prison for his unspeakable acts. During the sentencing, a moment that would usually make someone show some kind of reaction, defiance, despair, or even a hint of regret, Jutting remained silent. His face showed no emotion, no gestures, no expressions, no sign of inner struggle. Even when it became very clear that he would never be free again, Jutting showed neither regret nor resistance. His complete indifference became the final, haunting note in a very disturbing case. Despite the many recordings he made himself, despite his own detailed confessions, Rurik Jutting never gave a clear, direct answer to the main question that troubled investigators and the public. Why did he do it? The court took his chilling silence as a clear sign of his complete lack of remorse and a deliberate choice to act with extreme aggression and evil. But for the families of Sumi Ningrat and Jesse Lorena, and for a world still trying to understand the depth of his evil, the why remains a terrifying, unanswered emptiness. An emptiness that continues to echo in the quiet, tall buildings of Hong Kong. Thanks for watching, everyone. Your support truly means a lot. Don't forget to hit that like button, leave a comment, and share it with others. It really helps the channel grow. Your engagement makes a huge difference. See you in the next one.